Now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Business Awareness Hour. Nice to say hello to you. I'm Norman, the awareness guy, and the awareness young lady up there in a corner is Lisa Rodino. Good evening, Lisa.
Hi, Norman. Good evening, everyone. How's it going?
Let me know if they answer you.
I'm asking you.
I'm fine. I'm fine, thanks. I'm fine.
Good,
How was your
good.
weekend?
The weekend was very nice.
Weather was good where you
Still
are?
cold, though.
Yeah, it's
No, it's still cold.
cold is one thing. Cold and windy and dampy and rainy and whatever. We had our first bit of sun on Sunday after 30 days.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
it's
had no
crazy. And
sun.
today we went for a walk today because the sun was out, but it was still under 40 degrees. It was cold.
I'm going to
So,
ask my guest something, our guest tonight, Mr. Bernie DeSantis from
yes.
Insignia. How was the weather in Detroit?
It's cold and rainy and wet.
And damp and
Yeah.
nasty and
Yep.
whatever. And it's
Yep.
pouring like crazy
Yeah.
in California, flooding all over the place. Thank
Mhm.
God
Yeah.
we have no
Just,
atmospheric problems, in the world. Everything is
yeah.
groovy. You know who doesn't have
Hmm.
problems? Your customers, Bernie, when
That's
they
for
get
sure.
started with you, they have problems when they get started with you. They don't have problems when you're left. Let's start talking and telling everybody your story. Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely.
Where'd you go to school? You went to school in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken,
Uh,
right?
so yeah, I'm originally from the Detroit area and have spent most of my life here, with the exception of 3 years. I went down to West Palm Beach, Florida, and graduated from Northwood University, the BBA in Marketing and Management.
Hmm.
Ah,
Yeah, and then I come from a very large family. I have 8 siblings.
Hey,
I missed my family, and so eventually decided to leave Florida and come back home. And now all of my family lives within about 15 to 20-minute drive of me. It's really nice.
yes. That's one thing about you Michiganders. You always want to be back home.
a
Yep. Yep.
Michiganter?
We moved,
It sounds like a
yes, a
foreign language, a
Michiganter.
Michiganter.
Well, my Michiganter tried to move back at least 4 times, but New York kept calling. So New
So,
York was what it had to be for now.
all right, so you went to Florida, you came back from Florida. What were you doing for work?
Well, I got my career start at Quicken Loans. I was a
Ah,
mortgage banker,
mm-hmm.
making 100 phone calls a day, doing the old smile and dial routine.
Mhm.
If I'm being honest, I did a lot more dialing than smiling. It wasn't really my cup of tea.
And
Um,
down in Detroit.
yep. Now they're in
Yep.
Detroit. And at the time when I worked there, they were based out of Livonia. Um,
Okay.
but I was very fortunate to be there at a time when they were creating a leadership development program, and I actually became their very first leadership development trainer in company history. So my role there was less in the classroom. I was doing what's referred to as experiential training. So I would take large groups of up and coming leaders, and we would go do ropes courses or SWAT team trainings, where we built these full day immersive missions around the same skill sets they would use to run a team every day. Things like problem solving, teamwork, communication, strategic thinking. But as you can imagine, people have some pretty interesting breakthroughs when they're dangling 3 stories up in the air or have little rubber bullets flying by their head, right?
Ooh.
Uh, it was it was really a fun experience for me, obviously getting to help people to go through that and see some of the things that they would do when they were put in some stressful situations. But it was really fulfilling. Monday morning when I would get back into the office, I would have people stop by my desk all day wanting to talk about the experience. And for some people it was really professional, how they interacted with their teams or communicated, how they handled stress. But for some people, it was really, really personal. They would go home after the event and have conversations with a child or a spouse or a parent that they had been putting off for weeks or months, or in some cases, even years. And that honestly was what lit my fire for learning and development. I, recognized pretty early that I could step on a stage or in front of a camera or on a ropes course and deliver content or a work, excuse me, a workshop, and people would really find value in it, take things away that they could go and implement in their life or their business, and absolutely fell in love with pouring into people, helping them to be better when they left me than when they came to me.
So I guess Quicken Loans did a smart
Phenomenal.
thing by moving you into that management program.
Yeah, yeah. I like to think so anyway.
How long did you stay there in that program before you decided to make
So
a
I was
switch?
with Quicken Loans until 2008. So I was there for about 4.5 years. 2008, the mortgage crunch hit. Unfortunately, I
Mhm.
didn't make revenue for the organization, so I was laid off. And given the economy being what it was at the time, there were no learning and development jobs out there. So I took what I learned at Quicken and I kind of stuck with call centers and sales organizations for really, the next 10 to 12 years in corporate America. I spent about 15 years there. I sold facelifts over the phone for a little
Facelifts.
while, and then, yeah, yeah, and then
Wow.
made my way into training. Company that I worked for was called Lifestyle Lift. They're no longer in business, but they put out an infomercial late in the evening, and seniors wouldn't feel quite so young and vibrant anymore, and so they would come call in, and we would offer them a free consultation, and in some cases, we would even collect deposits over the phone for these procedures
Let me.
without ever having seen the customer and without them ever having met the doctor.
Okay. That was
That's
my question.
crazy.
How do you convince somebody to go and get a facelift? You don't know if the person you're looking at is stunning, needs a bag over the person's head. You don't know
Or
what the
two
heck it is,
bags.
Yeah,
or two
yeah,
bags,
no, you're not
whatever.
wrong.
And people are that dumb
Yeah.
that they're gonna go and give a deposit. I guess it's like hacking.
No,
It's like
no,
hacking a bank account. People
Norman,
are that silly.
Norman.
Well,
No,
I
he
don't know
was
if
a
you should really call
sales
them dumb, but
representative.
I'll phrase it a different way, Norman. My dad taught me a long time ago that there's an ass for every seat.
I know you're dead. So then you got finished selling faces and breast
Yeah, so
lifts and
I was selling facelifts for about 3 years, made my way into training and coaching and doing some mentoring there. Had a stop at a BPO or business process outsourcing call center, where we had a rotation of anywhere from 60 to 80 different clients at any given time that we were answering phone calls for. I like to joke that at the time, if you watch TV for an hour, you'd see maybe 100 phone numbers run across the screen, right? Different commercials that would come on,
Yeah.
and half of them, a third to a half of them, came to us at our call centers. So we
Oh,
sold
that's
things like we had a dozen different insurance carriers that we worked with, including Medicare and Medicaid. We sold SEO, we sold Brinks Armored Security. We had half a dozen fundraising and donation campaigns. We did customer service for Frito-Lay, technical support for Sony. Really just a myriad of all different types of widgets, that we worked with. And I was director of training there and created an onboarding program where we focused on soft skills and systems, right? Things around communication or the computer
yeah.
system that they would ultimately work with, things that I knew would be consistent regardless of what products they were working with. And we saw huge increases in customer satisfaction scores, huge increases in sales volume and sales revenue. So, in addition to falling in love with it early at Quicken, I realized that I was actually really good at it at that call center. So I was there for several years. We did, really fantastic work overall in the training department. Really grew the L&D team there and the different programs that we launched. I left there in pursuit of some other opportunities, and a little bit further down the line, I ended up working at a place where we manufactured mortuary, autopsy, and animal science equipment.
oh,
So
fun.
we were selling, yeah, we were selling body bags and body coolers, embalming stations and grossing stations to,
And the tables and all. My
medical
husband was a
professionals.
yeah.
That job
My
must have
Yep.
been
husband
a
was a
ki-
funeral director.
that job must have been
So
a
you are
killer.
familiar. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They were dying to work with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an interesting and very niche market. I learned a couple of things there. One thing is if you like animals, don't ever go to an animal science trade show. It's all very clinical. It's not like they have, dirty tools or anything like that, but you know exactly what they're using the tools
Right,
for.
right.
Um, and obviously I'm an animal lover, so I didn't like seeing that. The second piece of that is, if anybody ever offers you the opportunity to tour a morgue, just say no unless that's something that you're into. It's, the smell is not pleasant, even in a clinical environment.
I got to tell you, I got to
And
tell you a funny story about that. I'm going to interrupt you for
yeah,
just a second. For a while, I was in the assisted living world, and I ran two buildings. I had an assisted living building, and I had independent living, and we used to do travel from our competition. We had about 8 or 9 competitors within a 5 mile radius. And I would go and I would go look. I walk into one of them. She says, "Hi, can I help you?" Yeah, I said, "I'm looking for a room possibly for my mom. Could you show me what it is that you have? Show me around." So she takes me and she shows me this lovely room that's great. And this is the rec room, and we have this. And let me take you to the dining room. And she takes me down to the dining room, and I go. She goes, "You okay?" And I go, "Yes." I said, "I just smelled something. I was probably nothing." "Oh, this used to be the morgue." They
yep,
turned the morgue into the dining room. I said,
yeah,
"Okay,
Oh
that's good."
no.
Yeah, and it's a place that you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Lisa. It's a
And the
place you
kitchen,
know.
yeah, well, oh no.
No, I'm not
Yep.
telling. I'm not telling
And
you which one.
no, don't give it up.
No.
No, but my husband comes from the mortuary field. We used to live in funeral homes, so I know
hmm
that arena. And when working in the hospital, I worked in the basement down in radiation therapy.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Our neighbor was always the morgue. Didn't
yeah,
matter what hospital you were at because radiation could go over to the
that's right.
um, other side and
Yeah,
not be a problem.
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
interestingly, Lisa, my family actually used to own a funeral home as well, DeSantis Funeral Home, based out of Detroit.
really.
Oh,
Yep,
Well, you
okay.
guys got a
So
lot in
yep,
you
common.
probably not know my husband. Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
How long ago were you in the mortuary business there?
Oh gosh, I think it was in the 40s and 50s and 60s. My family owned it, and then they sold it off to I believe it was Calcaterra Funeral
Oh,
Homes here in the Detroit
oh,
area.
we know Calcaterra.
Yep,
They've got a few of them now.
yep, yep.
What's it like,
Yep.
Mahoney, out here?
Yes, but bigger. They
Bigger
had
than
a
them?
few offices
Oh,
all throughout.
really? Okay, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty large.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so
Yes.
let's jump in now to Insignia because this is really why you're here. All right.
Absolutely.
So let's start off with what does fractional mean? Tell us the little history of Insignia, not just the fact that you had purchased it, but throw that in there too. Floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you. So, after leaving corporate, I, got tired of the politics and all the BS. I decided to get into the world of contract facilitation, training, consulting. And I met up with my predecessor, Ann Davis, who owned and operated Insignia for 15 years. And she and I hit it off, almost right away. Worked on several very large projects with Ford Motor Company, Ernst and Young, and Hertz Rent-A-Car, and got great results like I always did in the past in corporate. And I went back to her one day and I said, "Hey, Ann, I really like what I'm doing. I like the freedom to be able to choose which clients I work with or don't, right? And that is a blessing in and of itself. Making better money than I ever did in corporate America. How do I do more of this? How do I get more involved?" And she came back and said, "Well, listen, Bernie, I've been running this business for 15 years, and while I love it, I'm ready to retire. And I've been looking to sell it for a couple of years, but I didn't just
Really?
want to sell it to somebody who would tear it apart or not take care of my clients in the way that I have. And I've never had feedback like I've had on you. And I think you're the right person to take it over." So, kind of like the Godfather minus the horse's head. She made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And here I am today, now 2 years later, running Insignia Training Partners. What we do, to answer your question, Norman, is we provide contract resources to organizations to complete their learning and development projects. And the word fractional is kind of the new buzzword out there. You have
Yeah,
fractional
everybody's
human
using that.
resources.
Everyone's using
Yeah.
fractional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically what that means is contract work, right? You come in, you do a specific
Mhm.
set of tasks or operate in a certain area of the organization, and then you leave and you just bill your client for the services that were rendered, with the idea being that you can keep the costs to your organization really low by not having an in-house whatever that fractional person is, right? Be it learning and
Right.
development in my case, or HR or finance or marketing, right? We're just an outsource company so that you can bring in resources for the project that you need, and then we leaving the completed project in your hands to continue to execute. So we provide Chief Learning Officer Services for strategy and architecture of learning and development programs. What I did in my background was facilitation, right? So I would show up on site and deliver training or do it virtually. We have instructional designers to build out training programs like your PowerPoint, facilitator's guide, participant's guide, and all of those job aids that you see. But really over the course of COVID, we got really into the virtual training space, right? Everybody had to. So, while we still do deliver a lot of trainings ourselves, right? We'll come in and facilitate it for you and we'll design them as well. The bigger part of our business has actually come from the production of virtual training. So, people will have their own courses or their own subject matter that they want to deliver, do a workshop in Zoom, but they struggle to do it on their own. And so we provide a virtual producer for them to manage all of the logistics before, during, and after one of these virtual trainings. So the setup and registration, managing the waiting room, opening breakout rooms, polling questions, and then we do the reporting afterwards. So, taking all of those things out of the facilitator's hands allows them to stay more focused on delivering their content, which they're a subject matter expert in, and engaging with their participants who are there to learn that information. Very early on in COVID, we recognized that there was a huge opportunity because so many people didn't want to take the time to really learn the Zoom or Teams platform, whatever they were operating in. So we allow them to stay in their area of expertise and we manage all of those logistics for them and create a really seamless and effective, engaging training program, right? Any workshop, webinar.
That takes all the headaches away for the presenters.
You got it.
That is phenomenal.
Exactly. Yeah, we really started to focus in on working with coaches and consultants, independent facilitators, and authors because they're doing these workshops all the time. And, as I talk to clients or potential clients and I'm doing business development, most of the time they'll say, yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years and, we do pretty good. It's good enough. But then when they get a producer and they realize how much easier it is and how they can stay focused on their participants and really engage, they don't ever want to go back to doing it by themselves again.
So how can someone reach you if they're interested in learning more?
Absolutely. Well, the easiest way would be to ring me up on the phone and, the old smile and dial, right? My phone number is 734-560-6344. Again, 734-560-6344. Or, of course, you can go to our website, insigniatraining.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
How do you find your employees?
So, interestingly, Norman, I am actually the only W-2 employee of Insignia Training Partners. Yep, I am the only employee, and that's by design. We have had some internal instructional designers and facilitators on staff before, but if I don't have a project for them to use or to work on, I'm paying them to sit around and do nothing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for my overhead.
You need a fractional person.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. We find somebody who's a contractor, a 1099 contractor. That's what they do is, like I did, they are willing to go into these organizations and learn content or design content at the request of that client. And so we use all contractors because A, it allows me to keep my overhead low, but two, oftentimes these programs that our clients are looking to build are custom. It's bespoke to them, right? So they're looking for somebody who has certain subject matter expertise in their industry or their product or service. They're looking for very specific experience with certain tools, authoring tools, or delivery platforms. So I go out and essentially I'm the quarterback. I will go and find the right team members that fits within their budget, has all of the skill sets and experience that would be necessary to complete that project. And effectively, that resource becomes a part of their team for the duration of that project. They take all direction from the client.
When you get in...
So,
go ahead, Lisa.
Where do you source getting your staff? Because, that's a big mystery.
It is a big thing. Yeah. I was very fortunate to purchase an existing business. And we have literally 1,000 people in our network, all learning and development professionals from different backgrounds. So I inherited a lot of the folks that I would be able to use. But honestly, if I have to go out and find someone, LinkedIn is amazing. I can go out on LinkedIn, put in a couple of search criteria, and boom, I can have 100 people that fit my search parameters.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So continue with
Norman,
insignia.
you had-
Go
through it.
ahead.
I was just going to say, then we go through a little bit of a vetting process. We have a couple of interviews. We'll check references, make sure that they're legit. Sometimes we'll ask for a portfolio if they're a designer. We make sure that they have the skill sets again and the experience to do what they need to do. And then we put them out into the client's world.
Very nice.
Why are you doing what you're doing? You didn't wake up one morning and say, "This is what I want to do. I want to have this company. I want, why?"
Yeah, honestly, I learning and development by accident, right? To have played baseball if I could have. I can't sing and dance, unfortunately. But really, when I did what I did at Quicken Loans, it lit my fire for this. I absolutely love supporting and helping people to grow. And now in my role as an owner, I don't get to do quite as much of that in-person or virtual facilitation even, right? Which is really what I enjoy to do. But now I get to provide that type of work to other professionals who also love this stuff because let's be honest, teachers and even professional corporate trainers and facilitators, we don't get into this type of work because we think we're going to get rich doing it. There's just really not a lot of money in it. We do it because we're passionate about it, because we love helping other people to grow and be better at what they do every single day, personally or professionally. And that's why I get up every morning, is because I get to provide amazing people with great work that they enjoy to do to take care of their families.
I used to do what you're doing myself, but I did it in one discipline. I only did it in HR.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that world for about 35 years. And I enjoyed
Yeah, it's
it.
interesting,
And I loved
Norman.
it.
My favorite referral partners are fractional or contract HR companies, outsource HR companies, because folks like you, when you start working with a client, you're able to get under the hood, right?
Absolutely.
You get to look at talent development, you get to look at their onboarding, you get to look at all of that stuff. And then if it's not within your wheelhouse as an HR organization to do, they send it over the fence to me. And we build their training program, or we revamp it, or we strategize for them, or
I never came
facilitate.
across anyone like you when I was doing that.
Yeah.
You had your
Yeah, there's
executives, you had your really major executive search firms that were out there, the international firms, and they did similar, but they did it on a much, like your clients that you had back at Quicken Loan, the Ernst and Youngs and all those kind of people. Do you remember when Ernst and Young was a big 8 firm and a big 16 firm, and now they're a big 4 firm? If they're still
Another
around,
big 4. That's right.
are they still
They are
around?
still
Ernst and
around.
Young? Right?
Yeah.
They are.
And my husband works for Protivity now, which they go in, they take care of matters requiring attention with the software and the financial side of things. So yes, Robert Half and the Young and
Yep.
Since Enron.
KPMG, the Conduents, the
Yep.
Deloittes, the Accentures. Yeah.
Yep. And since the Enron debacle, you now have Protivity.
Yep.
Yep. So
Now, since you've been
Crazy
in this
stuff.
business for as long as you have, I am sure that you have a handful of very interesting stories that you can lay one or two of them on us. I mean, make us crazy. Give us something that was really, really,
Make you
really
crazy.
wacky.
Something the audience will enjoy.
More
Oh,
crazy than I
goodness.
already am.
Let's see. I don't know that it's really all that exciting from that perspective. Crazy. Honestly, I would probably have to say that the craziest 2 places that I've ever worked and had to perform training were at the 2 that I mentioned to you, the facelift place and the manufacturer of the mortuary and autopsy equipment. Just interesting end clients that you get to work with, right? And especially in the the mortuary and funeral home space. I can say this from my own experience because their family, they are a different breed of individual. They are a very different breed of individual, but they are also very passionate about what they do, right? It's very important to them that, somebody's last rites, if you will, right? Their funeral go off without a hitch, right? They want it to be very respectful, really, really done the right way. But then
It's
the
for the
flip side of
family.
that, if it's not at a funeral, those guys know how to really party. They really do some stuff. And I won't go too far down that rabbit.
Play his bagpipes at the funeral home because his wife would not let him play them at home.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. Yep. So that's what we would hear at night in San Francisco, living in a funeral home cemetery in Berkeley. It was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Norman, we cannot hear you. Your mic is not working.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
That's
So-
why. Okay, now I got it. You've been working. You have a client or had a client that was a global tax world, an advisory, and you had a story about them. Tell us the story about those guys.
So yeah, that's actually that's EY. So interestingly, at the beginning of COVID, they're as you guys know, they're a global organization, 365,000 people, or at least at the time, that's how many people they had. And they were still doing 80 to 90% of their trainings in person. We're talking about subject matter experts, tax accountants. And let's be honest, there are a lot of really cool tax accountants, some folks that can stand on a stage and do some things that, other people can't. But there are also some that have the personality of, dirty dish rag. And so they started to deliver classes virtually. They wouldn't come on camera. They wouldn't know where to put their microphone. They, again, couldn't open up the waiting room or manage the breakout rooms or the polling questions. And so they realized pretty quickly that it was very difficult to do all of those things while delivering their content, doing it on their own. And so we started to provide that virtual producer role to them. Since that time during COVID, we've done close to 5,000 virtual events.
Wow.
Between Ernst & Young, Johnson & Johnson, McKinsey, as well as a lot of smaller organizations. And again, as of last year, started working with a lot of independent folks, and have never had a single facilitator come back and say, I'd rather do it by myself. Because once you experience having that support and how easy it makes it, there's no sense in going back to doing it on your own and struggling through it, quite frankly.
How do you determine how much
That's
time
for
you're going to
sure.
put per client?
Oftentimes it's dependent on what their objectives are, right? So and as example, if they want to do a 1 hour long, training program, that's going to be probably about 2.5 to 3 hours worth of actual producer work. Because what we'll do is, in addition to the 1 hour that we show up for the event, we'll meet with them about a week before, right? We'll go through a run of show, make sure that we understand how they want the engagement to run. Then we'll join them 30 minutes before their event and do tech check, kind of like how we did when I came on, to join you guys today.
Right.
Just make sure the camera's working, make sure the microphone's working, all the different tools that we'll use will work. And then we'll do the event, and then we'll stay on with them for another 30 minutes afterwards. Because typically there's going to be questions from participants. They'll want to stay and chat for a few minutes. But once they leave, we'll do a debrief with that facilitator and make sure that, they know anything that we felt could have been done better. And vice versa. They can give us that feedback if there's any pieces that we could have done better. So it's always an effort to improve. And, I think facilitators in general don't really get a lot of that feedback, right? They get surveys and such, and, maybe it's a 1 to 5 scale, and everybody just gives them a 4 or a 5. There's no actionable feedback there. So we'll stay on with them and say, when you were going into that breakout room, you could have done X, Y, or Z to get a little bit more engagement and set them up for success when they went to that breakout room. Things of that nature, helping them to improve. So every time they do another iteration of that course, they're always getting better.
Nice. Now, do you edit the material of what they presented also?
In some cases, yeah. So as an example, I've been working with a lot of smaller business owners recently, and helping them to create master classes, right? If you go on LinkedIn right now, you could scroll for 10 minutes and probably find 10 to 15 master classes that people are putting on, right? Both paid and free. Well, not everyone is an instructional designer. They don't all know how to create that presentation and all the additional materials. So we can, in some cases, help them to create from scratch that master class. We can help redesign course material that they've already